I would like to show you an example of what finding a real job for real pay can do to increase the quality of life for individuals who face barriers to employment. Jeremiah is an example of how a young adult who faces such barriers was able to obtain gainful employment based on his needs, strengths, dreams, and aspirations.
My name is Jeremiah, and I am working at the Home Depot, and I work very hard, and that be good.
Why do you like working at Home Depot, and what do you like most about your job?
To work with other people, with helping the hunger. Oh, I always do the barbecue.
How does it make you feel that you have a real job?
I do feel better. I like my life.
The important question is, how do you get there? What steps do you need to take to support your son, daughter, or student in their quest to employment?
In this DVD, we will be discussing the current best practices for successful transitions for youth with disabilities. We will be following the examples of students and their families who have taken an active role in the transition planning process. During this process, these students and their families set a concrete goal of achieving gainful employment, which eventually resulted in real work for real pay.
Hi, my name is ASHTON. I am 15. I go to MRSS, senior secondary. I am grade 10. I'm right now working at Superstore as a courtesy clerk.
ASHTON and his family contracted an outside agency to conduct a future planning process with his elementary and high school teams, during which one of the main goals identified was employment. Special emphasis was placed on providing ASHTON with work experience opportunities in his first year of high school. Upon completion of ASHTON's first year, the focus was shifted towards gainful employment. A customized employment agency assisted ASHTON in finding paid employment that reflected his hopes, dreams, strengths, and aspirations.
Before the customized employment project came on, we didn't feel that ASHTON would be able to work in his high school years. Just because the jobs that were open to kids his age were like McDonald's and a lot of the fast paces that we didn't feel that he would be ready for. I believe that if we can continue to have work experience in the school as well as real work for real pay, not all jobs are available to everybody at all times, but if they continue to build those skills when those jobs are available, whether they be summer employment or term employment, is beneficial.
And this also helps kids not fall through the cracks as well. It's sort of a bridge there.
Hi, my name is Kevin. I'm a grade 11 student at a high school and I work at the local library. In terms of future goals, I plan to finish high school and continue with a post-secondary education as well.
Kevin is another example of how a collaborative transition planning process can lead to gainful employment. In high school, Kevin was included in his individual education plan meetings, during which he was able to provide input and feedback to the goals that were set. Kevin's family was active in this process, and in addition to his school program, sought services of a customized employment agency, while actively encouraging the school to keep employment goals at the forefront of Kevin's plan.
Before the customized employment program, I had difficulty thinking that he would do well in a job simply because he didn't know how to go about the process of getting a job, and I felt that the employers might not be able to deal with issues that came up during his employment.
While transitioning out of high school and into the real world, getting and keeping a real job is a major milestone of adult status and self-esteem. Unfortunately, people with disabilities are at a significant disadvantage when it comes to competitive employment, that is, obtaining and keeping a real job for real pay. Employment rates, whether full-time or part-time, for individuals with disabilities are much lower than people without disabilities. These statistics tell us two pieces of information. First is that youth with disabilities are experiencing difficulties entering the workforce after leaving high school. Second is that we need to evaluate our transitional programs and make necessary changes that would reflect the current best practices for achieving successful transition from school and into the workforce. Employment upon graduation should be one of the main goals for all students with disabilities. One of the best predictors of successful employment for students after leaving high school is whether or not they have had at least one paid job before graduation.
It is important for families to advocate for their sons and daughters to receive an individual education plan that is person-centered and reflects their hopes, dreams, strengths, and aspirations. It is also very important to start this transition planning process as early as possible, preferably by the age of 14.
I was really wanting to get started with this really early because I knew that there would be quite a process involved getting to employment. My goals for him, at a very early age is, independence, have your own life, be able to work for a living, and all that kind of thing that everybody else does was my major goal for him. And it was extremely important for me to start really early. And as a result, I went to job placement places before he was even 14. And I remember going up to these people and they were all like, wow, you're starting awfully young. And I go, yeah, because I know I need to. I mean, it's very important that he does get a really good shot at getting employment. And if it takes 4 to 5 years to do it, may as well start early and get it started. My experience with the high school in regards to employment was they were quite against it. They were really pushing academics and they weren't looking at anything beyond high school. And it was a really hard push to get them to see the other side of it. And the only time that they started to really see that other side is when we started to show them what can be done. And then as time went on, they just did a total turnaround and said, wait a minute, we've got to really listen to this. This is a really good thing to do. And it's an important thing to do.
When ASHTON was getting ready to leave elementary school, and then out here in Maple Ridge, it's grade 7 going into grade 8, I really pushed for that transition plan to be put in place. And we had a wonderful team from the elementary to the school that came into the high school. And with the high school team, we did actual transition plan. And that helped open up the doors and understand that there were supports in place and that there was dreams not only from the parents but from ASHTON himself and his previous team. I can't stress that enough. You have to get in there and talk to the schools, both at elementary and high school, and get your dreams and your aspirations heard. ASHTON was able to do a lot of things because we did that plan. So don't give up.
IEP meetings can be both student-directed and person-centered. This means that they can actually be led by the student, and the student's hopes, dreams, aspirations, and preferences can be taken into consideration by the team involved in the planning process.
Most students with disabilities face what is referred to as the readiness model. This means that the students are placed in the situation where they are expected to demonstrate certain functional skills in order to be deemed ready for work. The goal now is to shift this thinking towards an opposite approach. This means that instead of training and then trying to place, students are actually placed into a position and then trained right on the job in the natural environment. For decades, students with disabilities who graduated from high school were faced with what is referred to as the vocational continuum. The vocational continuum operates under an assumption that individuals will move through the adult services model and will ultimately achieve independent real work for real pay in an inclusive environment. Unfortunately, this rarely happens, and most individuals get caught in the continuum, often for the rest of their lives.
The reality is that life after high school can be much more successful and optimistic for students with disabilities. When we use the current best practices, what we see is students graduating and becoming participating members of the community, which involves real work for real pay in inclusive settings. So what we want to do is set the stage for students to become more self-determined so that they can ultimately achieve a better quality of life. One key aspect for setting students with disabilities up for successful transitions is self-determination instruction. Self-determination can be described as having the ability to exert power over your own life. According to some of the leading experts in this field, there are 4 essential characteristics of self-determination. Behavioral autonomy. This means acting independently according to your interests and preferences. Self-regulation. This means having the ability to set goals, achieve goals, and problem solve around them. Psychological empowerment. This means having control over your own behavior in circumstances that are important to you. Self-realization. This means having a sound self-understanding and self-awareness, which enables you to capitalize on your strengths and make up for your shortcomings. These characteristics emerge in people as they acquire and develop a variety of skills, such as having the ability to choice make, decision make, problem solve, set goals and achieve these goals, and also acquiring a better self-understanding. These skills are typically the area that we focus on in self-determination instruction. What we have learned from the research is that there are a lot of positive benefits associated with becoming more self-determined. These benefits include such things as having an improved quality of life, having a better ability to make and obtain goals, and also having improved self-esteem and self-confidence.
Will definitely help me with my confidence. Yeah, I get more experience as well as become a little more motivated too. Probably general speaking entirely, because before I got the job I used to be really quiet, maybe not speaking at all. But after I got the job I started speaking more and more, and it still continues to this day.
Well, as a result of Kevin having this job, he has become very confident. He stands tall, he's very assured of himself now. He feels like he's contributing, and he's just a very, very happy guy.
Getting paid by my job, my pay is good. Having a job makes me feel quite great, you know. Now that I have a job, I'm trying to save up for an apartment. I have the money to save up for a flat screen TV. Now that I'm working at my job, I can have better social skills and be more independent.
One thing we can be most certain of is that without self-determination instruction, many students with disabilities will not become self-sufficient participating members in our community, simply because they have not been taught these skills directly. Another important point to keep in mind is that we should begin self-determination instruction at a very early age, say at age 13 or 14, when these students are first leaving elementary school and entering high school, which gives them 5 years to practice and enhance these life-changing skills in a supportive and educational setting.
Now that Kevin has a job, my ways of supporting him would be to encourage him to stand up for himself and speak up if there's a problem related to work, so that he can actually go and talk with the supervisor directly.
There are many self-determination materials that have already been developed and are ready to use at home and in school. For a very informative list, you can look at a book called Teaching Self-Determination by Field and colleagues. Here's a list of some online materials you may also find useful.
Whose future is it anyways? Please refer to the website below. Keeping it real. How to get the supports you need for the life you want. Choice Maker. IEP Team Educational Module to increase student involvement. Now that we have talked about self-determination and student direct planning, let's look at the steps we need to make to apply those to the real world. So how do we put it all together? The first step is to prepare the student for the meeting. We begin by making sure that we are working together as a team with the focused student in the middle and the family, friends, and school team wrapping around him or her. As a parent or teacher, ensure that the student has a voice in their transition plan and that the transition plan is focused on the student's preferences, strengths, and interests. The strength-based, person-centered profile focuses on environmental preferences, activity preferences, learning style, strengths, skills, abilities, as well as hopes and dreams. This profile can be compiled prior to the meeting and placed in a variety of formats such as a PowerPoint or a video. The key to any successful high school transition plan is real work for real pay after graduation. Make sure that a paid job during the high school years is linked to the student's strengths and preferences and is part of the individual education plan as well as their transition plan. Technology can help facilitate a student's voice and participation during the meeting and overall transition plan. For example, you can prepare a PowerPoint presentation or a video portfolio that can be used to graphically show the student's strengths and preferences, even if the student may have difficulty articulating them on their own at the time of the meeting. Once you have the student's ideal conditions for employment, the team can brainstorm potential job leads and job matches. As a team, you will have an incredible amount of personal connections that can be used in the job development search. Personal connections and leads are one of the top job development and job search strategies. Your school and the community are full of untapped resources and assets. Build a database of personal connections and community jobs close to the school and students' home and display them graphically. The next step is to ensure the student has a functional resume. Important points to include are student's job objective, current education status, volunteer or paid work experiences, special accomplishments, interests and hobbies, as well as references. It is crucial that your individual education plan and transition plans ensure that students are placed and supported in regular education classes. Research has shown that by attending regular classes, as well as experience in a paid job, a number of skills and positive expectations are achieved. Students develop skills, relationships, and behaviors that increased employability. For example, students were expected to arrive on time, engage in social exchanges, and attend instruction in high school classes. As a result, peer support was high, both in terms of peer tutoring and circle of friends. It was also found that typical high school students were often informing special educators of jobs at their place of employment.
Never give up on your kids. You have to be in their corner, being their advocate. Keep them shooting for their dreams, whatever it might be. Your child might think they're an astronaut. Well, they could be doing something that may be leading towards an astronaut or a pilot or whatever. And get them to find some kind of skills that will lead to real pay.
Not giving up. I mean, this is really important.
Always look positive. There's a better side on the other side.
Now that you have seen how successful the transition planning process can be, we would like to encourage you and your family to advocate for and take an active role in the transition planning process. Here are some key points to keep in mind. Self-determination instruction has many benefits and should begin as early as possible. IEP meetings can be both person-centered and student-directed, because it is important for both parents and students to have input on their short and long-term goals. It is important to have real work for real pay as one of the transitional goals, because coming out of high school with at least one paid job on the resume significantly increases the chances of employment after graduation. Be collaborative. Including everyone on the student's team makes everyone aware of the transitional goals, and this makes the process much more effective.
Above all, please keep in mind that it is often going to be up to you as your child's supporter, advocate, and friend to push the rest of the team to achieve the goals set in the individual education plan and transition plan.
Just remember, by working together, you can achieve your child's hopes and dreams.